Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and it's nice to have you here today. Please tell us where you are joining us from. And during this, the course of this discussion, please do keep on sharing where you're joining us from and what questions would you like me to take up or address for you today. And we are here to discuss about your MBA plans, specifically for the Canada location. So Canada is a very interesting location, and it is something that is a very coveted, it is a coveted place, a coveted destination for MBA goers today. Shashikant, hi, and do share your profile and also share with us what are your MBA plans. Hello, Karthik. Hi, Vibhu. You're joining us from India. So it's almost dinner time now. I thank you for joining us. Asmita, hi, good evening. So please keep on sharing your locations and also keep on sharing with us, your questions. Keep on dropping them in the comment box, and I'll take them up, as we go through the presentation. So I think let's start with the discussion for today, and what we'll be looking into will be things like what are the benefits of actually pursuing an MBA in Canada, which are the destinations or the MBA colleges that you can look up to. Hello, Rohit, and hello, Bonnie. You're also joining us from India. Rohit is also joining us from India. Alfredo from Peru, and Abhishek from Nepal. So good evening, all of you, and do stay with us and share your questions as well. I'll be happy to take them up during the course of this discussion. So we'll be discussing, some colleges, the eligibility criteria, the application process, something about the course as well, and understanding, what makes a successful application for an MBA in Canada specifically. What is the career landscape in Canada like? So when we look at an international location, it is very important to understand that every location has something specific going on in the economy. So if you look at the career landscape in Canada, you do see that financial services, the consulting industry, the technology, the CPG and retail, these are the major industries which are flourishing in Canada. Apart from industries like healthcare, real estate, energy and resources, and the telecommunications industry. So, if you have career goals to grow within any of these industries or any different functions, business functions in any of these industries, then Canada is a good place to be. Going forward on a discussion for an international MBA, what really also matters a lot when you are choosing an MBA program abroad is the postgraduate work restrictions or the possibilities that you have. So in Canada, the postgraduate work permit is very convenient actually. In that case, in case you look at the generic laws for the MBA programs, if you are completing a program which has slightly more than a 1 year, then you get a post graduate work permit for almost the same duration. And if you have a program which is around 2 years or more, then you are eligible for a postgraduate work permit for 3 years. So this is something very important for international applicants to note and also plan for when they are choosing their MBA programs. So, which are the schools that you can consider in Canada? When you are considering an MBA in Canada, the main schools that come to mind are the Rotman School of Management, the Schulich York University, the UBC Sauder MBA, Ivey MBA, and then the Smith School, the McGill MBA, the DeGroote, Alberta, and HEC Montreal. So these are the uh, Arnav, I did not understand your question. Even for Ivy School of Business, I think you're asking for the postgraduate work permit because the duration is 1 year. So then the work permit will differ according to the duration of the program that you are completing in Canada. So for all of these schools, we'll discuss some factors which might be important for you to to first decide on the programs and then also plan your application success very carefully. So what happens when you are looking at an international program is that you need to understand, what is the selection process. The selection process for the Canadian MBA programs or maybe any other international MBA programs for that matter is they look at your employability, they look at your preparation for amalgamating in their particular industry scenario. So your employability or your evaluation from the recruiter's point of view is very important. In fact, if you look at the MBA admissions process, the interview process at a lot of schools in Canada, especially, is conducted by career coaches or people who are heading the career team or the career prospects team. Why so? Because they also want to look at your employability in the future. So this is a range of the fee. Now, what the fee that we have covered over here, this range talks about the fee applicable for the international students. There is a difference in the MBA and Canada fees for the international students vis-a-vis what the Canadian students have to pay. So this is a comparison of the fee for the international students. So Vipu has a question. I'm planning to apply for MBA this year, 3.5 years of work ex, interested in consulting. A GMAT of 700. What are the chances for Rotman and Schulich? So Vipu, you do, conform to a lot of check boxes for both Rotman and Schulich. Now, what also depends on is what is your background. So, in case you would like to go in for a detailed profile evaluation, you could share your resume with me so that we could, look at the background and then, suggest some very specific steps. Otherwise, if I look at it from just the numbers that you have provided, 3.5 years of work ex and a GMAT of 700 does not disqualify you. You fall within the average range of what the schools are looking for. Now, this incidentally is the average age comparison for all of these schools. So if you look at the Canadian MBA programs, the main programs that we are considering here, the average age ranges from anywhere from 25, 26 to a little over 30 or 32 for that matter. Atish has a question. Is it worth investing almost 1 CR for Schulich considering average salaries around 97,000 Canadian dollars? 11 years of work ex, majorly in the defense forces. So, Atish, two things here. Worth investing for an immediate salary is probably something that is a slightly skewed point of view. What we would like to say over here, or what we would like to consider, is an ROI over a certain period of time. So, one is, why are you actually applying to an MBA school in Canada? Why not, apply to an Indian school or a European school or a school in the US? So it's not about spending 1 CR and getting 97,000 Canadian dollars, but it is more about what are your long-term career prospects like. Are you planning for a long-term career based out of that location? And then probably it does make sense at that level. Having said that, you have 11 years of work experience, majorly in the defense forces. So if you look at the Canadian, landscape in terms of the average age, and we also have the average work experience, 11 years becomes slightly, on the higher end of all of these. So it is always good that if you have plans to apply to Canada specifically, you can, get in touch with the schools directly and, have a profile evaluation from them for the sake of their acceptability of the profile as a part of the cohort. If yes, then it is a good idea to apply to Canada. Otherwise, you need to reconsider that. uh, Karan Singh Bora, I'm planning to apply for an MBA engineer 8 GPA. And Karan, do you have a GMAT score? So you have 2 years of work ex at MBB and 740 GMAT. Good enough for some sort of scholarship? Yes, Karan, I do think so. We have had applicants with similar work experience, slightly higher, and similar MNC firm experience with around a 720, 730 GMAT. And he got a scholarship at Rotman of around $35,000. So you can be hopeful, but again, a lot depends on your story as well, because there is no special application for a scholarship, especially at Rotman or at Schulich. A lot will depend on how your story is presented, how you connect the dots, as well as how you present yourself in the interview. But you can definitely look at a scholarship in Canada. Ashmita, could there be a possibility of a full scholarship in Canada during securing 700 in GMAT? So, Ashmita, I just discussed about the scholarship right away. So, you 100% scholarship is something that full scholarship is something that is probably not. So I cannot commit right now. But what I can say is that yes, if you are planning and positioning yourself properly, and with a very good forethought and a projection in the application which talks about your skills and the transferable skills, well, you can look at a scholarship as well. Satyam, but Schulich website says the average age is 32. So I think, Satyam, we did cover that. The average age for Schulich is around 32 from where we looked at it as well. So this is the average age chart, and this was the average work experience. So you are right. Yes, it is 32 years. Karthik says working as a geophysicist in the Indian National Oil Company for 6+ years, chances of employability in Canada post MBA. But plus what school to look for subsequently to work in the energy sector. So in the energy sector, I think Alberta is one school that you can look at, and energy sector itself is a big recruiter for the Canadian landscape after you have the main sectors like your this the consulting and the financial services sector. So specifically energy sector, but then what are the other skills that you bring to the table that also are very important. So again, I would suggest that in case you could share your resume, we could have a detailed discussion of a specific school selection. Aditi, is there a major difference in a 1 year MBA and that of 2 years planning to apply for the Ivey MBA? So Aditi, there is a difference between a 1 year MBA and that of 2 years. The main difference is the your duration that you will spend in terms of the summer internships or any other projects. What happens is that when you are moving towards an international location, sometimes summer internships becomes important and helpful as well to pivot yourself towards that country. However, having said that, where you're coming from is also very important. So if you are from a very agile sector, which is very much transferable and your skills are transferable, a 1 year MBA is fine. But a 2 year MBA will definitely help you, get that breathing space, get that, the communication and the being conversant with the industry norms, etc., so that you can network. Again, understand that in international locations, the placements are navigated by the students to a huge extent. So the summer internships or the summer projects that you do, they do help you network within the industry in that location as well. So that is also another benefit that you do get when you are applying to a 2 year program, especially internationally. Planning to apply for IVMBA. IVMBA, the interviews are conducted by career coaches. So do prepare well on the employability part, and do take care of how you are prepared for the career transition that you are. It is a very short duration, so that preparedness is something that you have to go in with and not look at the MBA program alone to provide you. Vamsi Reddy, can you compare an MBA in USA versus Canada and work experience 4 years? Sorry, can you compare an MBA in USA vis-a-vis Canada in terms of fee, opportunities, and average salary? So, Vamsi, this is a very important question. The difference in the exchange rates in MBA, sorry, in US versus Canada will have an important role to play. Plus, at the same time, US is a huge landscape. So, in that landscape, the industries are very widely distributed. So, the schools where they are present according to that location, you can actually look at what opportunities and what average salaries you will get. It, on a generic level, comparing MBA in USA versus MBA in Canada probably is too generic to take up for a career decision. Sawmill, is 325 GRE good for the Canadian MBA and work experience 4 years? So, Sawmill, from the statistics that we have seen in terms of the GMAT averages, the GRE 325 is a decent score to go with. 320 we consider being an okay score and being an average score. Work experience 4 years and MTech from BITS Pilani in design engineer, targeting a 1 year MBA. Again, if you're targeting a 1 year MBA abroad, be sure that you are very much clear about your employability and you are able to communicate it on paper as well as in the interview. Then I think this would be good. In case you wanted a more detailed discussion, you can always get in touch for a one-on-one call as well. Karan Singh Bora, how much weightage is given to LORs and how many are required specifically for the top Canadian B schools? So, Karan, if you look at the LOR requirement, it is 2 LORs and mostly actually it is 2 LORs. And how many are required? I told you what weightage is given. We cannot give a certain assign a number to it because the schools are not giving us an exact number to that. But we'll come to the exact requirement of these schools just in a few slides from now. And a video interview, is it harder than online or in person? So video interview, I'm assuming you are referring to the Kira interview. So the Kira interview, it is harder because you don't know what question will come up. So there are two variables over here. One is the being uncomfortable with uncertainty. So if you're very used to taking up questions just on the go, and if you have such a lot of clarity in your head, only then you can do well in a video interview. So having that clarity, and that clarity is comes through your research. So in terms of your video interview, it becomes harder because of the circumstances that it throws you into. It throws you into a lot of uncertainty, and it throws you into a lot of spontaneity. Everybody is not very comfortable with that, but still it is a format that is now very much prevalent in Canada. So that is why it becomes slightly tougher. Otherwise, if you practice enough, I think it is manageable. How is the work landscape set to evolve in the next 5 years in Canada? Could you talk about the outlook of business in the analytics industry? So, specifically, if I look at the analytics industry, it is not going to go anywhere, and the businesses will grow again. About the landscape specifically in Canada for the next 5 years becomes a slightly off-topic discussion right now, because we do understand that because it is a growing industry and it has scope in the major sectors that Canada looks at. So let's say it is consulting. Consulting in analytics and consulting industry uses analytic skills frequently. So that is one thing where you are not going out of business. And second is the financial services industry. So financial services industry also requires a lot of analytics, and it also incorporates a lot of analytics in the scope now. So even that is not going anywhere from what we can think of about Canada, the Canadian industry scenario. So I think about businesses in analytics industry, you can be well secured for that matter. So coming back, please do keep on sharing your questions. We'll be happy to take them up. And coming back to the presentation that we had, so the average work experience in for the MBA in Canada programs is roughly around, starting from 5 to maybe 6.5 years for a few cases, but usually it ranges at around 5.5 years. So when you are applying to Canada, there is a certain affinity for the younger age group. There is a certain affinity for people with a slightly lesser work experience for all of these programs that we are talking about. Having said that, the range does go. So, for example, if it is Rotman, the range does go from 0 to 13 years of work experience. So, it is not that they don't take people with higher work experience, but again, it also is very important for you to communicate with the school directly with your resume and get their go ahead on the application process from the point of view of your acceptability to the cohort. So that is something that I encourage that you must do when you're applying to any international B school. So the average GMAT scores. So thankfully, the average GMAT scores at B schools in Canada are not as high as the rest of the world, and this does give you a lot of opportunity to evaluate and consider even the best schools like Rotman. So Rotman has an average GMAT score of around 674. The Schulich MBA has an average of around 640. The UBC Sauder has an average, or maybe a competitive score is around 650. For the Ivey MBA, it is around 670, and Smith is 640, and HEC Montreal is 630. So with an average score of around this or maybe higher than this will definitely position you for a competitive application to an MBA in Canada. Arnav, what about spouse visa? Can we apply that? So Arnav, I'm not a specialist on the visa process. I would not be able to address this question. I'm sorry. I can talk to you about the business school admissions, but the spouse visa is something that an immigration specialist can only talk to you about. Somil, how is the HEC Montreal with respect to other B schools, considering the Indian person with no French knowledge, and how is post MBA prospects, considering the lower fees is ROI better? So in terms of ROI, if you are considering, the evaluation of the fee versus the post MBA salary, then definitely it is definitely something that you should consider. But having said that, no French knowledge would probably be a hindrance. So you need to, look at the landscape of the industries and the main languages if you want to, uh, amalgamate or settle down in an international location. Then knowing the language will help you navigate better and will make you more acceptable to the business domain around. So that is definitely going to be, a plus for you. I have a two-page resume as a work history was a bit complex. Can I submit that in stage? I think no. I think you can submit the two-page resume. I don't think that is any problem at all. 9 years experience in business marketing and e-commerce. So 9 years experience in business marketing and e-commerce not a hindrance at all. What you need to look at is that does it make you employable in that business scenario or not? If yes, then why not? Then you must go ahead. If there is a certain lack of skills or a certain lack of you being absorbed in that industry, then that might be a limitation, and those skills can always be built. So while you're applying, you can always plan to build those skills and gain that experience, and then put up your application. Harshil had a question: GMAT of 660, 4 years of experience in Wipro Finance, and 2 years in executive MBA done. Well prepared for the early rounds. Do I hold a chance in Rotman? So 2 years of executive MBA done, that means you've already completed an MBA, it seems, Harshit. So then you do need to have a few explanations ready with you. That is about, why you want to take up a second MBA. And maybe a higher GMAT than what you have right now would also be helpful for you to present a competitive application. Average GRE score, please. So, Amarnath, the average GRE scores are technically not available because a lot of schools they convert the average GMAT to GRE. So that is why we have not, brought this up in this. Every school, especially in the Canadian landscape, they do look at your GMAT scores and they do convert it to, they do convert it to the GRE equivalent. So every school they have their own system, but they do not release average GREs. So that is why we are not bringing it up. How will a diverse background affect my application? I have a 5 years experience, but changed 3 industries in the first 3 years. So changing 3 industries in the first 3 years, yes, it shows a lot of diversity, but it also shows a lot of varying interests and things that you have probably not been able to make up your mind as to what you want to do. If there is a logical reason behind it, I don't think it should be a problem. It should definitely be a plus for your application. So think of those explanations before you apply, and I think you are good to go. Is migrating to Toronto easy post MBA from HEC Montreal? Again, migration or immigration laws and the rules for processing all of that paperwork is something that we don't take up as a part of this discussion. So I'm sorry, I would not be able to address that. And was recently impacted by the white tech industry layoffs and have strong prior work experience. Will me being impacted by a non-performance related company wide layoffs be a problem? So if it was a non-performance related company-wide layoff, then it has, quite a few things to talk about you. But again, have you worked, after that, and then post the layoff, have you built new skills? And are your prior skills still current and they still, are do make you eligible for being absorbed in the industry scenario? Then I don't think it will have a negative impact. So the fact that you were laid off doesn't have a negative impact. What it did to you, or how you improved after it, is going to be more important. So think of it in those terms. A GMAT of 690, 6 years of experience in banking and credit risk at Canadian bank subsidiary. My college GPA is average. What are my chances for Rotman? Technically, Alfredo, I think your chances for Rotman are good. In case you want to take a retake on the GMAT, that would be good because your GPA is average. So you could, slightly up your GMAT once more and, just take a shot at Rotman. I don't think there should be a problem. Which of these are one-year MBAs? So the one-year MBAs are offered by Ivey and HEC Montreal. Rest are two-year MBAs. What is the due date for applying to B schools there? I'll just put up the duration slide. So if you look at the one-year MBAs, the Ivy and the McGill MBA, so these are expandable. So McGill, you can take up an expandable duration. HEC Montreal has a 12-month duration, and Smith also, it is a minimum 12 months. It can be expanded as per your choice of electives as well as the projects. So this is the bandwidth on the duration aspect. What is the due date for applying to the B schools there? So Omkar, the due dates for applying to B schools have come up for Rotman, and it is available for Schulich and McGill. So these are the due dates available. The application for McGill has not yet opened up, so you still have to wait for that. Apart from that, Rotman and Schulich are the deadlines which are still going on. So comparing the global value of Canadian schools, should we consider Canada over US and Europe? Having said that, no particular inclination towards Canada. Uh, Global value of Canadian schools should be considered. See, if you then comparing the global value as per what? So is it as per the salaries that they offer, or is it as per the navigation that you have to a certain other sector? So again, this becomes a slightly vague question to answer. If you don't have a particular inclination towards Canada, why spend so much and go towards an MBA over there at all? Finally, keep one thing in mind: global value or other things, they are, something generic. As a professional, as an individual, you should be able to, decide where you want to have a long-term career. What is the main takeaway of an MBA program is the network that you build. So it is always good to build your network in the location where you are planning to have a long-term career, growth. So if it is where if you see your career in the US, then why go to Canada or Europe at all? So look at it from that point of view rather than, just the numbers that too keep on changing year on year. Amarnath, a 9.1 CGPA and 98% in the 12th. Can I consider a Canadian MBA? 1 year work ex. So Amarnath, there are few schools where you can apply, and right now, if you have a 1 year work experience, by the time you apply, I don't think you have a GMAT now. So by the time you are done with your GMAT and you apply, you will have slightly more than one. So you will have a good range of schools to apply to. Yes, you can consider the Canadian MBA programs. Uh, was it wise to have three baskets, dream school basket in range and below range? Plan total six schools average. Do you think we should apply to the above US app style to the Canadian applications as well? So in Canada, the choices are actually, yes, you should have three baskets, but would it be six schools or five schools or four schools is up to you. But again, it also depends on, in case you would like to share your, exact profile with me and your resume with me, I would be able to advise better on this. But having six schools, or you can also look at four schools, depending on the other numbers that you have. So if those are good, then you can have a good chance on maybe three schools as well. Just look at Rotman, Schulich, maybe Ivy, as well as UBC Sauder, if this is the location, and probably five schools should be good. Can we apply in August to September? So, Omkar, the application cycles do open up between August to September. So that is when you can apply, yes. And I think the first deadlines are somewhere in October for Rotman. So that is how you can plan your application. Is it a smart choice to change your career from hospitality to analytics by pursuing an MBA from Canada? So Pulkit, probably only an MBA will not help you, change your career from hospitality to analytics. You do need skills, prior skills in analytics as well. Analytics being a technical subject, you do need to, come up with that specific skill set which will position you for an analytics career. If you have done that, then you can definitely change your career from hospitality to analytics. Depends on your very specific situation. Arthur 2.2 CGPA, 710 GMAT, and 4 years experience. Can I apply to McGill and Schulich and Rotman? So when you look at the CGPA and when you look at the Canadian MBA requirements, you do need to also see that the CGPA requirements are actually, subject to the last two terms, and it is very different for each of these schools. So Schulich will consider your last year and your final year, or if you just look at this slide, just let me expand it. So the final, if you look at the Rotman MBA requirement, it will require only the final year average to be a mid B or a higher. So when you talk about your CGPA, you are actually talking about the whole duration. But when the school looks at your CGPA, they look at a certain period only, and especially in Canada. So you need to, not take up a CGPA, but take up a grade point on your term by term basis, and then connect it with what the school requires to see whether you are eligible or not. If you are eligible, then a 710 GMAT actually is a good score to go ahead with the application process. What is the average cost in INR for 1 year MBAs in college? Saf, I think this is a very vague question. You can just research the schools and use the conversion rate to help you with this. 325 in GRE, but the score is 3.5 years old. 3 years of total work ex. 1 year in non-profit and 2 years in Big Four. Do I need to take the GMAT for MBA in Canada? So if you have a GRE, the GRE score is valid for 5 years. So probably this being 3.5 years old will not be a problem right now. You can apply with the same score. You don't need to take the GMAT especially for that. If you think you can score higher on the GMAT, you can definitely go and do that. But having said that, the GRE score is still valid. 3 years of work experience in the current industry, including 1 year in non-profit and 2 years in Big Four. Even that is good enough. You need to have a strong story of why you want to pursue an MBA and what your career goals are. Remember that your scope of recruitment and your employability. This is going to be the main important aspect of a strong application. So be sure that you have researched enough and you are able to bring that up positively in the application. Abhinav, what about 10 plus years of experience, 650 GMAT and 2.7 GPA? What are my chances in each of these? So 10 plus years of experience, Abhinav, my recommendation is that you're already in MBA from BITS Pilani. So my recommendation is that you should share your specific, resume, or maybe your technical resume itself with the schools that you are targeting first, so that you are able to, they are able to tell you and identify that whether you are a fit with the cohort or not. That being step one. Step two is the 2.7 GPA. Is it the last term? Is it, the last two terms? Every school has their very specific norms. It is always good to share your transcripts with them initially at the onset, so that they can evaluate and tell you that whether you are eligible to apply to the school or not. Especially when you're planning for the top schools, it is a good idea to do that. So overall CGPA is something that the school does not look at. They do look at the last year. Sometimes they look at the last two terms, and they have their own conversion mechanisms. It is best to give them the transcripts and let them tell you whether you qualify or you don't. And they are very straightforward with this process. So I think you can just go ahead with this particular two steps, and that should be the answer to your question. Executive assessment in terms of the MBA admissions is not evaluated. It is taken up only for certain executive MBA programs. So if you're planning to pursue an MBA program, the EA score will probably not be useful for you. Is 36 too old for an MBA? So 36 too old for an MBA in Canada specifically, maybe yes. Again, my recommendation is that you should, age is just a number. You should share your resume. It talks a lot about your professional agility. It talks about a lot of your, about your skills that you bring to the industry. And once, the school looks at it, they will give you a very fair evaluation of whether you should apply to the school or not. That is, the step one that you should take up. For post MBA financial services careers in Canada, do you think province location matters? So financial services careers in Canada are actually the most prevalent careers. So probably the location is something that will not be a very big hindrance. But again, looking at the industry scenarios, it is always good to check the specific location as well. But again, financial services in Canada is almost one of the biggest industries that they recruit into, so it should not be a big problem. Whilst if you're talking about the MBA in Canada, we had compiled, a few numbers here, which would also help you take that decision. If you look at the Alberta recruitment, it has a major of consulting, and financial services is actually the minimum as compared to consulting and the technology. So you can decide for yourself, how the financial service sector fares in this particular scheme of things. But still, again, how much, what is the intake that they have, what background are you coming from, which particular company are you targeting, where is the company based, all that is going to be important. So go into more details than generic numbers, please. Priyanka, while sending the application to a particular school, do we need to give the English proficiency test along with the GMAT score? So, Priyanka, for the Canadian schools, technically you don't need the English proficiency test if you have, for this is for most of the B schools. If you have, completed your graduation or your undergraduate studies in the English medium and the examinations have been conducted in English, if your degree and your transcript say that, then this much is enough for applying to a school in Canada. You might need the proficiency test score while you are applying for the study visa. So this is on the generic level. When you are talking about a particular school, it is always good to check that specific guidelines that they offer on their website. So is there a way to filter B schools based on their improvement in the current courses across Canada? Improvement in the courses offered across Canada. For example, I heard HESCAN has improved a lot than what it was 4 or 5 years ago. I think what you need to improving across a period, how is that important? Is it that we are going to stay there for the next 4 or 5 years? Probably not. So since the programs are 1 or 2 years, you need to look at the courses as on the current information that they provide and whether it is relevant to the industry or not. If it is relevant to what industry you want to go into, then I think it is good enough. Is there a way to filter B schools? Hearsay, maybe. I don't think there is any specific mechanism for that, Vishwati. Nisha, I have 7 years of experience in supply chain, 320 in GRE, which school to apply for program in operations management. So operations management specifically, are you planning to apply to a master's or are you planning to apply to an MBA? So if you're planning to apply to an MBA, then operations management is actually not, it is one of the courses which is offered in an MBA. It is not a very specific, it is not a specific course which is offered. So I could recommend the specific schools to you in case you could share your, resume with me and have a detailed discussion. We could, share a specific list of schools. Otherwise, the range of schools that we have or Canada has, if you have a 320 in GRE, you are actually eligible. This is the average range for almost all of these schools that we are discussing today. And is it worth for an international student as it requires entrance exams or experience? So Abhishek, it is definitely one of the University of Canada, West Vancouver. So being worth or not worth is up to you to decide. You need to see what you're looking at from the program and what your exactly expectations are, plus also, where you are coming from. So if you see a good employment scope from there and your career growth from there, then why not? You can actually go in for the university for sure. So coming to the eligibility part of the programs, the Canadian B schools, they do offer a GMAT waiver as well. So in case you are coming with a very specific, in case you're coming with a very specific qualification of maybe having a CFA level 2, you can actually get your GMAT requirement waived off at Rotman as well. Apart from this requirement, the GMAT, apart from the GMAT requirement, the Rotman school will require you to submit the bachelor's degree or equivalent. It will require a minimum GPA of 3 and your final year average. So what the school actually looks into is your final year average should be of a mid B or higher. So again, mid B or higher becomes vague when we look at it from our standpoint. It is always the school has given a very clear benchmarking of the grades conversion, especially for the Indian grades. So you can look, compare your final year averages with the specific school benchmarks and decide whether you are eligible or not. and it requires at least 2 years of full-time work experience. Coming to the Schulich or the York University, again, they do offer a GMAT waiver if the student has achieved a B plus or a higher GPA during the last 2 years of their undergraduate studies at Schulich itself. So if you have studied from Schulich itself, then then you get a GMAT waiver. Otherwise, you will have to submit the GMAT. The minimum score of GMAT is 550, and the minimum score for GRE is 155 for both of these sections. One of my friends went to Rotman, was unable to. Is there a bias against higher age students by North American employers? Very difficult to say. It is something very individual, and these things happen all the time. So, how important is leadership experience with respect to application? So, leadership experience has a lot of aspects to it. It can be leading a team, it can be leading a company, it can be leading a function. So, based on how many years of experience you are, the leadership experience changes. But when you are considering MBA programs, the leadership experience aspect is definitely an important thing to go with. It does give you a benefit in terms of your candidature. It does, set you apart. So, it is good to be able to showcase leadership experience with respect to the application for any MBA program, not only Canada. So, how easy is mobility in Canada post MBA if you like to, if you pursue an MBA in say Toronto, moving to Vancouver, or is there some restriction? Again, these are very specific norms with respect to the locations. Technically, there are no restrictions, but again, with the industry that you're coming from, or with the the background that you're coming from, is it employable? Toronto has a different type of industry, which is if there is mobility within that industry, then of course you can move. And CGPA of 6.8 from NIT Warangal with 713 GMAT. Is the low CGPA a deal breaker here? So Ritik, again, the CGPA of 6.8 is probably not a deal breaker. I need to go deeper into this. One is which school are you targeting? Second is you need to also check that what is the CGPA norm or the GPA norm for that particular school. We just discussed, that every school, mostly they have their own norms of calculating your CGPA from an international program vis-a-vis what they compare from their standpoint from as compared to the Canadian benchmarks. So it is always good to share your transcripts. Again, another thing is that the CGPA itself probably not be evaluated. They might look at the last year grades or the last 2 years of grades, depending on the degree that you have. So don't go by the CGPA norms as you would go in any other location. Look at the very specific school norms and then decide as to how competitive your application is. Which college or program is best for students looking for HR specialization? So HR specialization technically is not a limitation at any of the B schools. These are all general management programs. They do give out their specializations and electives very specifically. So what exactly in HR are you looking for? HR itself is a broad term. Is it organizational behavior? Is it leadership development? You need to go into Abhitev, you need to go into the details of the curriculum to be able to decide whether it has enough electives for you to build a strong career in HR. So coming to the eligibility for the UBC Sauder MBA, and please everybody, it would be great if you would like the video and put your comments, share your comments, share your questions and comments. We would like to have a lot of questions over here, and I'm happy to answer them for you. So GMAT waiver was available for the UBC Sauder MBA for the 2023 cycle. As of now, they have not announced the 24, the intake for 24. So we will wait for the GMAT waiver norms for the next upcoming cycle. Apart from that, if again, Ritik, this is also to answer your question. If you just look at the eligibility for Sauder MBA, it requires the GPA of B plus or higher in the last 2 full years only. It will, so if you are an engineering student, you have 4 years of education and your CGPA is across those 4 years. But if you're applying to UBC Sauder, you actually need only the last 2 years. So if you qualify on that front, then it is good enough. Then you don't need to worry about the 6.8. How much does location of B school matter in terms of employment? It does matter quite a bit. And that too at an international location for international students, it will be very important. Industry is not concentrated around a few cities. Yes, they are. At a lot of locations, that is the case. So definitely going to a B school in across, in the area where you want to build your career and you want to build your network is definitely going to be a plus. So that is one very important criteria, except for the rankings and other points in ROI that you look at. This is a very important long-term ROI, which is really going to stay with you. The location of the B school and the location of your, future plans. So choose your school accordingly. Does MBB recruit from Canadian B schools? If yes, then from which also? It does recruit from Canadian B schools, and you need to go into the detailed career reports for the schools. I think you'll get most of the names over there. Since BCom is a 3 years degree, hence 15 years of education, masters, some schools might not consider this, and master are expensive. Freshers should do diploma or PGT and then. So this is, Abhishek, this was something that is not applicable to all the B schools, the 15 years of education. A lot of B schools, they are okay with your bachelor's degree, whether it is BCom or it is engineering. And in that case, what they do look at is an extra year of work experience. So in case you have, a bachelor's degree of commerce and they do require you to have a 4 years degree, then they might want you to have an additional year of work experience. So if 2 years is the minimum, they would want you to have a minimum of 3 years. So again, this is something that we used to consider around 4 or 5 years back. Things have changed, so you need to first look at your target schools and then find check whether this norm is actually applicable or not. Right. So for the Ivey MBA, a very important component is your leadership potential. Then you have the GMAT and GRE scores. And the GMAT waiver is available for the Ivey MBA, the intake which is going on currently. And the two criteria which are applicable are whether you have a CFA level 2 or a CFA 3. And another criteria would be to have a very strong GPA. But again, this is subject to their permission. Hi Aditya, thank you for joining us. Please share your questions if you have any. We'll be happy to address them. And guys, please do like this video and so that a lot of people can benefit from it. Right. So the GMAT waiver is available. To apply for a GMAT waiver and see if the school sees you as looks at your candidature as qualifying for that. So for the Ivey MBA application for this current cycle, you can apply for a waiver. Apart from this requirement, you need the GMAT or GRE scores and at least 2 years of full-time work experience. For the Smith MBA, so you do not have any GMAT waivers even for the next upcoming cycle. The deadline is September 15th every year, and I think September 1st or September 15th every year. And you need to have a bachelor's degree or equivalent. English proficiency test is required in this case. The GMAT or the GRE scores are also required, and you need to have at least 2 years of full-time work experience to apply to the Smith MBA. For the McGill MBA, the GMAT waiver is again not available for the upcoming year. It was available previously, but not now. These were sometimes during the pandemic that the GMAT waivers were amply available. And the upcoming deadlines are November 1st, January 15th, and March 15th. What you require to submit is your GMAT or GRE score, at least 2 years of full-time work experience, and you must have a bachelor's degree or equivalent. TOEFL or IELTS scores are only required if it is applicable. So go through the details very specifically and go through your transcripts, match your transcripts with that in case, it is applicable at all. Otherwise, probably you will not require one. For the DeGroote MBA, the DeGroote offers Mac Master School of Business offers two MBA programs. One is the full-time MBA program and second is the co-op program. The benefit of the co-op program is that it is for people with lesser work experience. Then the cohort is very young. Plus, you have the option of having three. So you have the option of having 3 summer internships and projects, and these are all paid internships. So that is, if you do qualify the DeGroote, you must check out, the DeGroote co-op MBA program as well. So the DeGroote MBA itself, right now, there was a fall for GMAT waiver offered for the fall 23 intake, but it does not seem as if there will be a GMAT waiver for the 24 intake. As of now, there is no announcement of that sort. Then the minimum GPA should be a B or a higher. And again, how do you calculate your GPA? It is best to share your transcripts and your resume with them. You need at least 1 year of full-time work experience. So there was somebody who was asking for where they can apply with 1 year of experience. You can apply to the Degroote MBA. And you need a bachelor's degree. Plus, there are a different range of schools which are scores which are applicable, the GMAT, GRE, or the MCAT. And even you can apply with the CFA level 2, that is equivalent to your GMAT score as well. Okay, so thank you, Bunny, and all the best to you as well. So, Aditya Pradhan, hi. I have 49% in BCom and 62% in MCom. I'm preparing very hard for GMAT. I've heard from some people that due to my bachelor's percentage, I am not eligible. So, Aditya, this is what we were actually, discussing about. For your bachelor's percentage, 49% as a whole, you need to check. First of all, being eligible is the first part. Compensating with the GMAT is another thing. So if you're eligible, then you compensate it with GMAT. If you're not eligible, then rest everything is probably not applicable. So to first decide whether you are eligible or not, it is best to share your total transcripts for BCom as well as MCom with the target schools, and let them evaluate and get back to you for the eligibility part. If you are eligible, then that's the way to go. You get a high GMAT and it will compensate for your low percentage. But if you're not eligible, then probably Canada is not the location that you look at. But having said that, since your last education is MCom and you have a 62% in that, you can actually probably apply. But I will still suggest to send your transcripts and send the actual story to the schools, and they will get back to you with their evaluation of the eligibility part. If you're eligible, then go ahead with the high GMAT. It will help you square off. How do I share my transcripts? Just write an email to them, put an email to them, attach your transcripts, take a PDF, attach your resume, and write to them that I want to apply to this school. I have these credentials, and my concern is that these are my grades. I want to understand if I'm eligible to apply or not. That's as simple as it is. You will get the email addresses. You will also have a lot of options on the school website where they ask you to share your profile. So go ahead and talk to them, and you can also schedule calls with them to discuss your candidature. So that's the best way, and that is the most direct way to have the right answer to your question. For the Alberta MBA, the GMAT waiver is eligible. You can get a GMAT waiver if you have a bachelor's degree from the University of Alberta. So for international candidates, we need to. So Anisha, I'm just coming to how you can share your resume with me. This is our email address and the website and the phone number. You can always WhatsApp us on this number as well as write to us, or maybe just drop in a message on the website itself. So do share your resume. We can get on a one-on-one call and see how we can help you and into shortlisting the schools and deciding as to where you want to go. Right. So the last part of the discussion, and if there are any more questions, guys, please do share them with us and do like the video and share in your comments. It is very important for us when we are holding the discussion to understand, how we can take it further from here. Is it true that Recruit focuses majorly on co-op students than do a non-co-op program? I cannot comment on this. I'm sorry. Some reviews on GMAT Club stating about it. Then I think it is about their own evaluation of that particular program and their own understanding. It is best to ask the school. If they say so, then so be it. So Rahul has a 331 in GRE, verbal 169 and quant 164. Should I take the GRE? I think Rahul, your GRE is good enough. In case you could share the rest of your profile, that would also help us understand in case you need a higher GRE. But technically, just looking at the GRE alone, I think it is good enough. For your chances to get a scholarship, focus on the story as well as the GRE. Once that is done, I think that is fairly done. Focus on the story, focus on your recommendations and preparation for the interview. there are many aspects and many steps to applying, for a successful application to a school like Rotman or Schulich or maybe Degroote as well. So then you must ace all those steps, not only one. Should we share our master's transcript with the school for GP eligibility? Will they consider the bachelor's or master's? So if you have a master's, you should share both the, why not share both the transcript? Why keep one and share one? When you are putting up your question, share everything that you have and see what they have to say. For some of these schools, the GPA cutoff is not mentioned because it is not, what we have taken up is the information that is given by the schools on their official portals. So none of this is something that we have observed or known about it. Is there something internal or not exposed? I cannot say that. It is not mentioned. List that provide 100% scholarship of for MBA. So 100% scholarship of MBA for MBA, all the schools will provide it if you are eligible. If you are not eligible, then probably none of the schools. So I cannot share a list on that. You can, of course, compare your candidature with the rest of the class profile and see if you are competitive on that front. Then you can definitely expect a scholarship. And Rahul has a 6 years of entrepreneurial work experience. Where should I get your LORs from? You can get your LORs from your clients, from your bankers, from your partners, your investors. I think these are good sources for entrepreneurs to get their letters of recommendation from. And please do like the video and share in more comments on the video as well. This was a very this was a very engaging session. Thank you all for your questions as well and being present at this hour. And for any other questions, do get in touch with us and we'll be happy to help you out. I have given the contact details on the screen here. Legit enough. I did not understand your question, please. Uh, what's the eligibility for 100% scholarship in Canada? So for 100% scholarship in Canada, the scholarships, there are most of the schools, they don't have any specific essays or any specific process. So the eligibility is having a strong application. So having a strong application includes your GPA, includes your GMAT or your GRE, includes your essays, includes your LOR, includes your interviews, includes your Kira interviews, all of these. So if you are above average and above par on all of these aspects, you can expect a scholarship for sure. So thank you everyone. Thank you for joining us. I think these are almost all the questions. For any other questions, please feel free to reach out to. Feel free to reach out to us on WhatsApp. You can email us. You can also get in touch with us on the website, and we'll be happy to take up a one-on-one discussion on this. Are LORs legit enough compared to someone from a big? Yes, why not? See, if you are in a certain environment where you are not working in an MNC, then there is nothing, there is no question about being legit or not being legit. It's about you deciding as to who is the best person for you to recommend you, who can talk about your work experience, who can talk about the way you work and the way you perform at work. If you think it is your client, then there is no problem at all. They are able to talk about it in a way to support your application, and they have seen you very closely and they have seen your work very closely. It is definitely legit. So what to look while selecting universities? So Abhishek, when you are selecting universities abroad, apart from rankings, apart from how the world looks at those universities, it is very important as to what your career plans are. So a few steps that you need to look at are, what is your actual career plan? Is that location where you want to settle in the long term? If yes, then you should go ahead with that location. And then, is that does that give you ample opportunities for growth in the future as well? So don't look at an immediate ROI, look at the future growth as well. And apart from that, I think costs are something that is important. Financial planning is going to be very important when we are choosing a MBA program. I hope I've answered your question. Please do go ahead and like the video. Right. So, any other question? What to check particularly within the universities? So, within the universities, you should check the curriculum. You should check the location where the university is, and you should, look at the business prospects around that location. You should also talk to the alumni, talk to the school ambassadors, talk to the school as well about what your career prospects should be and what your expectations from the school should be. Finally, it also really matters that you enjoy your stay at the school and you enjoy the learning experience at the school and build new relationships. So you must also check the environment, check the school, the class size, the cohort